Hello, welcome to this webinar. My name is Andreas Blumauer from Semantic Web Company, and I'm very happy and proud to be able to present to you today PoolParty 4 from text mining to linked data. So this time in our webinar series, we are going to display a couple of improvements we've done recently on our products, but I believe also something quite new, quite innovative. I will showcase how to make use of knowledge graphs to execute complex queries over a large document collection. And I think that's pretty new on the market, and that's probably one of the most interesting things I will show today. So let me give you a short overview over this webinar. It will take about 40 minutes around. At the end, we will open up microphones. So if you're interested to discuss that a little bit further, and if you have questions, please feel free to stay with us in the room so we can talk a little bit about your ideas, about your ongoing projects and things like that. We also have a questions area in the GoToMeeting. So if you have questions during the session, please feel free to insert them there, and we will try to answer them as soon as and as quick as possible. So I will start with a very short intro for those of you who are new to PoolParty, who are new to linked data. I will also give you a short intro to PoolParty Revisited. So what's not so new probably with the tool itself, but just to give you a rough overview of what PoolParty is all about. And then for those of you who are familiar with our product suite, I will outline the major new features of version 4, which was released last month. Then I will give you a short overview of what's new on the power tagging side. So we will give you the latest overview of how PoolParty can be integrated with systems like SharePoint, like Confluence, like Drupal, and other pretty widespread platforms out there. So that's the first part of our webinar, and part number 2 is more of example applications and about the Semantic Integrator. So the Semantic Integrator is what I've just before annotated with the term innovative. It's all about being able to make use of knowledge graphs to query over documents with other, let's say, complex query types. Some say it's semantic search, but I believe it's even more possible with knowledge graphs in the background to do queries over documents. Yeah, last but not least, I will give you a short overview how you can get involved with our technologies, how you can try them on your own, and give you a couple of links for your further exploration. Okay, so just a short intro at the very beginning. So my name is Andreas Blumauer. I'm CEO of Semantic Web Company. We are not a startup, a typical startup. We're on the market since 2001. And in about 2009, we finally decided to launch our product, which is called PoolParty. In the meantime, we have a pretty stable and interesting customer base. We serve global 500 companies as well as public administration, bodies, NGOs, NPOs, and all of them have one thing in common. They have a lot of information. They don't know, they don't know how exactly they should treat them without semantic technologies, and that's our mission, more or less, to bring linked data and semantic technologies into enterprises. So here's a short extract of our customers. You can see there's pharma industry, there's finance industry, automotive, energy. So typically all those organizations which are interested in a more professional information and content management. Okay, let me start first with a very quick overview. What's new with PoolParty 4? So our idea of thesaurus management, which is, let's say, the basic layer of any linked data application, is that it should be as efficient as possible. And therefore, we've built in 3 features. First is an integrated quality management to make sure that the resulting knowledge graphs are of really high quality. So for instance, we prove if there are hierarchical cycles, if the label management was done correctly, and things like that. The second interesting feature for any thesaurus manager is being able to harvest linked data. So it's, I think, a very straightforward measurement to have a linked data harvester built into such a tool, because you don't want to reinvent the wheel again and again. So for instance, Wikipedia, which is one of the largest knowledge graphs on planet Earth at the moment, consists of nearly 4 million entities in the English version. There are more than 115 language versions of Wikipedia available now. And why shouldn't it be used to populate your taxonomy or your thesaurus or your knowledge graph in general? So that's a feature you can make use of with PoolParty 4. So those who've been familiar with PoolParty before the latest release, we called it COSSI before we integrated the linked data harvester into PoolParty. So actually it's not a very new component. New is that it's fully integrated with the thesaurus editor now. And last but not least, a very powerful feature is the integrated text corpus analysis. So what you usually start from, you start with a bunch of documents, maybe a couple of thousands. You would like to call them a reference corpus maybe, and you say, okay, those are the most typical documents in your organizations. So let's see how we can extract a seed thesaurus out of that. And not only in the very beginning of your thesaurus projects, you will make use of the text corpus analysis. You will also use it to make sure constantly and iteratively if whether your thesaurus is already representing the document basis as it should be. So the corpus analysis is really helpful to detect the gaps between the knowledge graph and the content which should be represented by the knowledge graph. But let me go back to 3 good old features we've always been focusing on. That's probably interesting for those of you who are not so familiar with PoolParty at all. So the first most important feature we were always very focused on was to provide a very user-friendly interface to the thesaurus managers. And therefore, we've built a browser-based, pretty fast interface which provides drag and drop. For instance, if you want to make a relation between 2 concepts, just drag and drop the 2 concepts on each other and it will be linked instantly. Autocomplete helps you to detect already existing concepts, and of course there's also online help and the typical features provided by a state-of-the-art web application. So that's the user friendliness, and usually it takes you about half a day to be able to get to be familiar with PoolParty thesaurus editor, and then you should be able to get started with your taxonomy project already. Second feature we were always focusing on, and I believe that's more and more important to professional thesaurus managers, is to being able to link and map thesauri to each other. So usually you don't have one large taxonomy. You probably have a couple of them. You have probably a core thesaurus and a couple of others, which should be linked to this core element. Also the maybe departments create their own thesauri, but they should refer to a controlled vocabulary, which is kind of a central element in this network of thesauri. And therefore we have built a couple of tools. For instance, the one you see in front of you here, you have two thesauri, and you can link those to each other via tree view. You have a list view, and you can also link concepts to each other via autocomplete and via semantic search. So this mapping between the concepts are, let's say, semi-automatically possible. By the way, we've put it on our roadmap. So in the next release, we will have a semi-automatic patch linking of thesauri built in, which makes it even easier to link large thesauri to each other. And last but not least, we were always very focused on providing means to our customers for import and export of existing data. So the import feature recently was broadened by the Excel importer. There's of course still CSV, XML, COS, RDF import, and for the text corpus analysis, you can import a lot of document formats, and the end result always is either a W3C semantic web standard compliant knowledge graph, or with means of the custom report feature we provide. It's not a big deal to export the knowledge graph in formats to be reused, for instance, for Oracle text, for SharePoint 2013, or Google custom search. And that's typically a list which is extended constantly. So that's more or less what's been around with PoolParty for a while. And the latest release now comes with 3 new features. Let's take a look on those. So the first one is the integrated quality management. The quality management checker is built upon an open source library called QSCOS. And QSCOS was developed in recent years by one of our colleagues, Christian Mader. He was now working on the integration of QSCOS into PoolParty in recent months, and that's the result here. So what you can do is you can check your thesaurus if there are, I would say, the most typical problems containing or not, and there are at the moment 8 such checks implemented. For instance, hierarchical cycles, non-disjoint labels, inconsistent preferred labels, and so on and so forth. So for instance, the relation clashes are also a very interesting feature, because those thesauri which are on the market for a while, I would say them with the highest reputation, even those with the highest reputation, have such relation clashes pretty often. So that was one of the outcomes also from my colleague. He wrote papers about that, and I believe it's very important now to have a quality checker built in a tool which should provide high quality thesauri. I mean, just imagine we wouldn't make any checks on our software before we release it. It should be the same as knowledge graphs with ontologies in general. And I believe thesauri in recent years were more or less handcrafted, and there were no automatism in the background which helped to find out where possible improvements. And that should be our contribution with PoolParty to support thesaurus managers with such quality checkers, which can run in the background either or as an explicit report. And you can also set let's say the scenario you would like to have provided in a scenario where you're probably more focused on text mining. Let's say you want to create a thesaurus for text mining application. You might have different checks available than you're more interested to publish the thesaurus as linked open data. And therefore, you can set different scenarios and say, okay, which of the checks are by default, which are probably disabled, and which should be strict executed. So that's the built-in integrated quality management. The second, I mentioned before, is the integrated linked data harvester. So here you can pick out any of the DPpedia categories with search. So you type in the category you're interested in, and then you will be provided by a list of categories derived from DPpedia. You can first see if they are the proper ones. You can select them, and you can choose, okay, into which depth you would like to crawl the graph, and you can also add the alternative labels, the synonyms if you want, and the definitions from DPpedia, and also the relations. You can also replace the original DPpedia URI if you want, but the whole graph which was harvested from DPpedia will be stored in another named graph. So you don't run into the problem that your own created information will be completely mingled up with the DPpedia graph. So they're stored in different graphs, but still will be linked to each other. That's a very powerful way to create the seed thesaurus, and also if you want to enrich your concepts with synonyms automatically, especially when you want to use it later for text mining, for instance. By the way, the slides, of course, will be on SlideShare. There will be the whole video recorded also on YouTube, and you will be informed in about, I believe, 12 hours or 24 hours via email with the corresponding links. Also, the demos I will show in a couple of minutes. The links to them will be sent via email to you from the GoToMeeting server. So you can click on these YouTube videos if you want to see them, or of course, if you want to try them out, just get your demo account and you can try it out on your own. So that's the third feature I want to point out. That's the integrated text corpus analysis. It helps you to find out, first of all, terms which are not covered by the thesaurus. That's the first and most important feature. And on the other hand, it also reflects the gaps between the thesaurus and the corpus, which means it shows you a list of concepts of your thesaurus not used in the corpus, for instance. So that's the two most important analysis done by the text corpus analysis, and it can handle a large document collection up to 20,000, 30,000 documents. And we always say that's pretty much the maximum to have a statistic relevancy even for the largest text corpora. And that can be handled with our databases in the background. You can use either Virtuoso or Sesame as a triple store, and it will be stored, the whole text corpus and the annotations will be stored in the triple store together with your knowledge graph. And in a second I will show you the Semantic Integrator, which makes use of this pattern already, because there you can combine annotated documents in the knowledge graph for queries. Okay, so as a summarization, what the PoolParty knowledge modeling process looks like, would say all the features you need to have in place can be provided by PoolParty 4. You can derive models from reference corpus analysis. That's point number one. We've also built in linguistic modules. So of course you can make use of lemmatization. For English, it's built in. For German, there's a basic lemmatizer out of the box. But if you want a more sophisticated one, we can integrate it from a third-party provider, and we can do that also with the most relevant European languages. Then we have the linked data harvester. That's number two. Of course, you can also make use of existing taxonomies with the import features I showed you. We can extract it from databases, typically done with some wrappers. But in number three, usually you have most of the data. You need to create your thesauros in place, and then you can do the gap analysis. You can, of course, create your structures semi-automatically. Still, we don't believe it's feasible by algorithms, simply done by algorithms. You need to have domain experts in place who will create a knowledge graph. And last but not least, number four is the, let's say, the iterations you usually make during even the operational phase already. So for instance, you can make use of search logs if you use the thesauros for semantic search to find out which search terms are used by the end users, to integrate them into your thesauros, and also the quality checks you probably will do constantly. You will also make the reference corpus analysis from time to time once again. So you constantly improve the knowledge model by those means. Yeah, why should you create such a knowledge graph? So one of the first obvious reasons is to annotate documents. So there are a couple of integrations now done on top of PoolParty. We call this integration power tagging. So there's a power tagging module for Atlassian Confluence. There's one for SharePoint 2013, for WordPress, for First Spirit, which is very frequently used, especially in the German market. And there's a Drupal module which can make use of power tagging. And it's pretty much always the same pattern, how to integrate it with an existing CMS. So of course we can help integrators to create their own power tagging module if necessary. And it works with all the configuration levels of PoolParty. Power tagging works also with the basic server. We have 3 different configuration levels, but I will talk about that a bit later. So that's a shot of the power tagging for SharePoint, for instance. So you can see the text will be analyzed automatically. Tags will be suggested. The end user can pick out the proper ones, can also add new ones, and it's all based on a controlled vocabulary. So you don't run into the problems, first of all, that each user tags with its own labels. Now it's based on a controlled vocabulary. Of course, users could suggest new terms, those will be pushed into the taxonomy, and the thesaurus manager can assert it to the right place in the knowledge graph. But it's also possible that's done by the search for tags tab. You can see up here to type in any label, and the auto-suggest functionality based on the controlled vocabulary will help you. Now the question could come up by typical SharePoint users, say, oh, why should I do that with an external module and not with the built-in taxonomy manager of SharePoint? Same with Drupal. Confluence wouldn't have nice facilities for taxonomy management. So here it's pretty obvious. But with SharePoint and Drupal, there are 2 reasons why you could make use of PoolParty. First of all, if you have really large taxonomies and thesauri like Mesh, Gemet, Acrovoc, Eurovoc, they're multilingual and so on and so forth. It's a pretty hard task to do that within the SharePoint or Drupal taxonomy editor. And the second most important reason and that's especially if you have a heterogeneous IT landscape, is you probably would like to have an integrated view over several data sources, not only SharePoint. No, probably you run 2 or 3 different CMS. So you need to handle the semantic metadata outside of the content repositories. And that's exactly what we do with the Semantic Integrator. But before I go to the demos to the Semantic Integrator, let me showcase you one example of a power tagging application. So we've built a frequently asked questions FAQ database for our own tool. It's based on Confluence. So PoolParty FAQ system is based on a wiki system called Confluence. That's what you can see here in front of you. A couple of question categories. So for instance, can I reuse my already existing taxonomy or thesauri in other formats? And here are the corresponding pages in our manual. And those were completely linked automatically. So if I log in into this system now, you can see the semantics behind this question, which is, for instance, CSV, SCOS, thesaurus, taxonomy, and so on. So those were asserted automatically. The annotation was done automatically based on power tagging, and that's a macro, a Confluence macro, which calculates the most similar pages in our manual to this question. And that's really helpful if you have a large manual, a large variety of products, and you have a FAQ database. You cannot link the manual anymore to the FAQ manually. You need to have such a mechanism, and we believe the power tagging is not only for such applications good, it's good in general for search, of course. If you start typing in simple knowledge organization, you should have, it's up here, okay. So here is the autocomplete functionality, and that's one of the, let's say, low-hanging fruits, how you can make use of semantics in the background. But let me go back to the slide deck. Semantic Integrator. So that's more or less our latest bundle we offer. It consists of a couple of PoolParty components. In the background, you need to have a thesaurus manager. You need to have the entity extractor. You need to have a large triple store with integrated with opening softwares, Virtuoso here, and then you can do a lot of interesting things with your data. Again, a three-step. It's a three-step approach. You deploy your own knowledge graphs. So it could be a thesaurus, or with PoolParty you can create also RDF schema-based ontologies in combination with thesauri, so you can extend this cost schema. So your knowledge graph together with your documents, which are already transformed into a knowledge graph more or less, together with LOD like geonames, DBpedia, and others, are all stored together in a triple store. And that's this PoolParty Semantic Integrator. So you again have all the different content repositories put up here into your graph database. You can also derive data from your relational databases. That's provided by Virtuoso out of the box. You can map a relational schema to an RDF schema. You can digest linked data from the LOD cloud like DBpedia, free-based geonames. And you will put into the integrator your own knowledge graphs. And those all together can be retrieved via one single and standardized API. It's SparkQL, which is used here. That's a W3C standard, and Sparkly 1.1, which is the latest definition of it, has very powerful features built in, like, for instance, traversing hierarchies and things like that. And on top of that, you can provide such applications like mashups, data visualization, semantic search, and so on. So I will show you now two examples. Example number one. Let's assume you are an analyst in the energy market and you would like to have a better overview of which alternative energies are used on which markets. Therefore, we collected about 60,000 documents derived from several news feeds and made use of the Regal thesaurus, which is well elaborated thesaurus for the renewable energy market. We enriched that with geonames, we enriched that with DBpedia, and let me show you what's the result. So first, we can drill down to certain areas. So for instance, we have Arabic-speaking countries, the European Union, English-speaking countries, and so on. And that's derived from the Yago categorization of each country. So let's assume you're interested in Nordic countries. And most probably they use hydropower and wind power, for instance. So that's one of the outcomes you can see here instantly. So for instance, Denmark has a very high interest in wind power, obviously. Probably not so much in solar thermal. There's only 2 documents in Norway somehow. So what's going on in the, let's say, Commonwealth of Nations? So you can see here, there's probably more the focus on, let's say, hydropower. It's true, yeah, especially in Uganda or in Nigeria. So what is done in the background? We've annotated thousands of documents with the help of a thesaurus, and therefore we made use of the hierarchies of a thesaurus. So anything which is somehow a subconcept of hydropower was used to annotate the document and to categorize it as hydropower. So it's a very accurate way to categorize documents. That's the first thing. The second thing is we made use of geonames to do a geo annotation. And since geonames is linked to DBpedia, and DBpedia provides for each country several additional categories provided by the Yago ontology, which you can see here, we can do such things without a lot of effort. And you can add very easily a new category. You don't have to rearrange the whole application or the database scheme. Just add a new category and you're fine. So just when we built that application, I went up to my colleague who was responsible for that and said, would like to be interested in more categories, because we first started with those ones, Arabic speaking, English speaking, French speaking, and so on. I said, I'd like to have more than that. For instance, I don't know, Nordic countries or Commonwealth of Nations. It took him a couple of minutes and I had new classifiers. And that's great, I believe. So that's the first application. You can try out on your own if you want. So here's a summarization, what's done in the background. And that's the overall architecture. So there were hundreds of news feeds. There was geonames, DBpedia, and really loaded into the PoolParty Semantic Integrator. Those 2 were used to annotate the content, to link it to the graphs. Those graphs are linked together anyway. And with the proper Sparkly query, we were able to do geospatial search. You can call it semantic search if you like, and some kind of data visualization. Okay, so that's number 1. Now I show you a second example, which is probably even more complex. Let's assume you are an information officer at the Global Health Observatory. at the WHO. And now you would like to find out, as an indicator, probably what's going on in the PubMed library. What's published recently? Which diseases, which disease prevalence is dominant in certain areas? For instance, you are up to rearrange some health programs. You would like to find out, okay, which health support program should be enforced, which should be probably reduced a little bit. And let's take a look on the result of this application. So we analyzed around 140,000 documents here in 3 different health disease categories. So you can see there's cardiovascular diseases, neoplasms, and nervous system diseases. And we use the HDI, which is the Human Development Index, to have an indicator how do certain disease categories correlate to the HDI. So let's take a look on it. For instance, let's go further down to the, let's say, lower developed countries, and here to the highest developed countries, which is, for instance, the Scandinavian countries or Switzerland, Germany. So you can see there's a very large difference between the, let's say, typically mentioned diseases in that area. So there's other things explored in countries like those than in the, let's say, higher developed countries. And that's an, I would say, interesting visualization and outcome of an analysis of a large text corpus. So let's do probably another example here. So for instance, it's not a big surprise that meningitis is much higher and frequently mentioned in the development countries than in the countries with very high HDI. So here you find things like dementia or epilepsy and things like that. Okay, so that was a second example. And I mean, I would not say that that's not feasible with traditional relational databases, that's clear. But compare the effort you have to put in if you want to do it with linked data technologies compared to traditional database systems. And that's the big difference here. It's not that complicated to rearrange the application like that a little bit, to have probably a third filter and another facet and a new category and things like that. It's very agile. You can rearrange the application from time to time. And that's the big difference, I would say. And yeah, so that's number 2, healthcare. You can try it out on your own if you like. So you can see here, it's a pretty large document basis. We use the mesh thesaurus. It's clear for such a domain. We use the geonames once again and DBpedia to look up the Human Development Index. So that's the overall picture. There's a mesh thesaurus, DBpedia geonames once again, and the PubMed document base. Okay, so coming to an end, I'd like to point out 2 other PoolParty-based applications we recently brought on the market. First, there's a collaborative market intelligence platform. We call it Sonar Web Mining. Let's take a look on that. So that's just a website. You can find basic information. If you're interested in a demo, just drop us an email and we will provide you with a login to the system. So that's once again based on Confluence. Confluence is, for those who don't know that much about Confluence, a very common collaboration platform in large organizations, but also smaller ones. You can upscale the Confluence very nicely. and I believe it's about 15,000 organizations now worldwide making use of Confluence. And yeah, we've built the power tagging module for Confluence about 2 years ago, or 1.5. And about three months ago, we added to this power tagging bundle additional module called Sonar Web Mining. And what it does for you is explained in 3 sentences, more or less. You can add your agents. They will harvest documents from the web. So in that case, it's about renewable energy. Once again, you see there are several websites visited in certain intervals. So that's the first thing. And you can push the documents into a space which you define in Confluence, and you can put it into different spaces. So that's the first thing. The second thing is after the system has collected, you can see here from different sources, maybe hundreds of documents, you can start to drill down the results. It's more or less a feed reader, if you want to aggregated feed reader, but it has very powerful search, so you can limit it down to certain topics, either by typing in the word here or by clicking on a facet. So you're probably interested in biomass, and together with the, let's say, woodful in a certain area like Denmark, and here you are. So that's the first thing. And probably you want to store, that's number 2, this search as a watchdog, as we call it. So you can say Denmark wood, for instance. And then you can select from time to time this search and execute it. So you don't have to type in these complex queries sometimes all the time. You just click on the watchdogs. And the third thing, beside these facets and the agents, is you can also see things like sentiment. So it's good news, bad news differentiation. So you can see, okay, here obviously it's more article which talks about problems, which talks about negative, emotional negative things, and those ones which has a green and high sentiment are more the, let's say, optimistic, the good news, if you want. So yeah, then what else? We have some trends analysis down here that's also interesting. So how do your searches correspond with other or correlate with other topics over time? And you also have a more like this functionality here. So if you found something interesting, of course, you can click here, and you can see it's inside Confluence. First of all, so you can write documents, you can like it, you can share it with your colleagues, you can print it out if you like, and things like that. So it's more collaborative market monitoring tool than a simple dashboard. It's more than a search engine. It's more focused on application scenarios in which more than just one person is doing competitive intelligence, for instance. So you can really pass around interesting articles to your colleagues. That's one of the most important features provided by Confluence out of the box anyway. Yeah, and this more like this feature also helps you if you found something interesting to find similar stuff and to do a better, more, let's say, exploration of the field, find stuff which has to do with this certain area you're focused on, and that's another feature which was built in. Okay, that was Sonar Web Mining. If you're interested in that, you can buy it as part of the Power Tagging bundle. And then last but not least, we recently also provided the EU, the European Commission, for their water innovation marketplace with a matchmaking platform, which helps people to find to each other when they have similar interests. And that's one of our Drupal modules built on top of PoolParty. Very quick overview, just to get a little impression what you can obtain from us. So it's the PoolParty products have basically, when you're interested in thesaurus management, 3 different configuration levels. It's a basic, the advanced, and the enterprise server. They have different features, of course. So again, the quality management, for instance, is provided by all of them, whereas the basic server has it only as an optional feature. The linked data is the same thing. Corpus analysis is built in all of them, whereas there's only the basic in the basic server, and there's only text mining in the enterprise server. We have different target audiences here, the prices for the cloud services, but of course you can install this software also on-premise. So if you don't trust in the cloud anymore, you can install the software on-premise if you want. Yeah, and now I hopefully have showed you a bit of what you can do with PoolParty technologies. Hopefully you're interested now a little bit more than before you entered this virtual room. If so, please go to this website. As I've said before, you get all the links anyway, and try it out on your own. It takes you about 2 minutes to get an test account, and then you can try out on your own. All the 3 different configuration levels are provided for you. Just play around, get some kind of feeling, how it works, how it feels. Hopefully you like the user friendliness we provide to you, and yeah, would be happy to get in touch with you. So that was it, and now we will find out if there are some questions in the questions box. Actually, I haven't looked up that, so don't see any questions. Okay, it's a good sign or a bad sign. In former webinars, we always had a couple of questions. So if you're interested in that, we can also now unmute people. If you raise your hand, I will unmute you. Actually, Thomas, could you please assist me a little bit with that? Here we have a couple of questions now. That's also interesting. So first I will, maybe at first we start with the question. So there is Daniel Latke. Hi Daniel, I think we know each other. Do you cover similarity and clustering? Yes, we need to do that, of course. I mean, similarity, I've showed you just before in this little use case. So similar documents can be calculated also on top of the semantic footprint we create in the background. Sorry, I will unmute. Can we I just first start with the questions in the questions box, and then I will unmute if someone is still interested in more details. So yes, similarity is covered, and clustering not necessarily, I have to say. So I would not say that's one of our foci. Of course, we calculate co-occurrences per document and things like that, but clustering of documents is not necessarily our focus. But Daniel, may I ask you for the background of your question? I just unmuted you.
Yeah, hi Andreas, Daniel speaking.
Hi Daniel.
Hi. So the reason, I mean, the presentation was very good. I liked it. It seems to me that you do most of the things based on your thesaurus. That means all your faceted searching, you drill down, etc. It's based on your thesaurus. But the question is, do you also do similarity and clustering based on the rest of the text of the content?
Okay, yeah.
Because, you know, if I don't have a thesaurus and I don't know exactly what I do with my content that I collect, so there's maybe a possibility using some other statistical methods to group similar documents together by your own topic, by without really specifying a clear thesaurus for it.
Yeah, now that's a good point. Yes, we not only extract the already approved concepts, which are in the thesaurus, we also extract the free terms. So if you give the software a try and, for instance, try out the corpus analysis, you will see that there are also free terms extracted for each document. And therefore, we've created a couple of relevancy ranking algorithms. Of course, we have sliding windows, we have detection of nested concepts, we have linguistic measurements like lemmatization, things like that. So it's a pretty good quality of the free term extraction. It's of course also multi-term phrases which are extracted and things like that. And we put a value on top of each term and on top of each concept. So we calculate a footprint out of the document which consists of the concepts from the thesaurus and of, as we call them, free terms. And together they build the semantic footprint, and that's what we make use of when we calculate similarities of documents. We don't have a clustering algorithm implemented yet. Don't know why. Actually, we never had the requirements to do so, probably. Can you imagine any interesting application when you make use of clustering?
Yes, if I just get a collection of documents and I just want to throw it in and just say, please system, just, you know, group the things together which you think are somehow relevant. So that means you're using on one side the similarity approach for similar documents, but then you still try to group them together in some like high level clusters or topics.
But that's also feasible with the thesaurus very nicely. For instance, the mesh thesaurus or the Gemet thesaurus or the Eurovoc, you name it. They have such high quality, and we also make use of DPpedia very heavily. We have nearly 4 million entities in it, and if you want to cluster it, you make use of the categories. If you, as I've showed you before, we clustered the cardiovascular diseases-related documents by making use of the thesaurus. So that's our clustering. I have a little suspicion, I'm not sure. Maybe that's a very provocative question or answer on that. In days of large linked data graphs, it's probably not necessary anymore to have clustering algorithms in place, like in former days.
Yeah, maybe, yeah.
I'm not sure, we can discuss that.
Yeah, of course. So, and I just typed in a second question. As I haven't seen anybody else there in the queue. The RDF store you use, do you make any use of reasoning and inferencing?
Yes, we do. For instance, very straightforward is what Sparkle 1.1 provides with the property path traversation. So we traverse property paths heavily all the time. So for instance, if you have a disease detected, we traverse the whole hierarchy up to the highest possible concept. That's one way how to make use of the knowledge graph. For instance, for other reasons, we also, for instance, if we create a knowledge graph, we have the inverse properties, we have the symmetric properties, we have broad and narrow relations which are inverse, and our reasoner, of course, helps people to create the knowledge graph as consistent as possible. Also, the quality checkers do a lot of reasoning. So we make heavy use of Sparkle 1.1. What I believe here is that our reasoning is still not there where it should be. We don't make use of our reasoning. Instead of that, I mean, we do a little bit, but not what in academic papers you always have read. What we do instead of is we make heavy use of Sparkle 1.1.
Yeah, okay. But basically based on a store that you are using, so you're not having your own store.
No, we don't have our own store. We will never have. Here we cooperate with RDF triple store providers. So we use Sesame on the one hand, and we make use of Virtuoso, of OpenLink software. And yeah, so that's the most important ones to us at the moment.
Okay, perfect.
Okay, thanks Daniel for the questions.
Okay, thanks.
So I have second question or second attendee of the webinar here asking me, how did you say we can get access to the PoolParty Thesaurus server, or to the PPT as we call it in short. It's Shlomo. The asker is Shlomo Sanders. Hi, Shlomo.
Hi.
So yeah, the answer is there are a couple of ways to do that. Either you go to our website, and there is a point called Try It, but you will also receive tomorrow an email from GoToMeeting, and in this email you have all the links you can try out very easily. So I will put that link especially in this email you will receive tomorrow.
That's great.
Sure, and if you need a personal assistance, just let us know, and we will be happy to set up a GoToMeeting once again.
Okay.
So we can do a personal session also if you're interested in such things.
You see my second question?
Sorry, I did not get that.
I have another question I put up there. What is the largest corpus of articles that you analyze?
What is
the
largest vertical? Oh, sorry, I did not get it.
How many articles have you analyzed? What's the largest set of articles?
Okay, yeah. So what is the largest corpus of articles that have been analyzed? It's about 30,000 documents. So we, for instance, for the medical area, we analyze 30,000 documents. And usually, if you end up with about 2 million extracted terms, it's statistically representative. You cannot improve your extractions anymore significantly. It doesn't make sense to have more than 30,000 documents. I mean, of course, it depends a bit on the length of the documents. But we figured out that, but that's interesting to discuss. If you have experiences with larger reference corpora, please let me know. But to our experience, it's 2 million extracted terms, which is the maximum limit until the extraction doesn't improve anymore. Is that what you experienced as well? What's your largest corpus?
We haven't done semantic analysis yet. Our article, and it's not in one subject. It's a very large set of articles. I'm not sure if we can have it covers everything that can be in the world. We have 1 billion articles. So I'm really worried about the scalability and how.
It's very hard to understand you. I'm so sorry. Just to make sure we talk about the same thing. We are very focused on creating domain-specific knowledge graphs, and even very large domains like, let me call it, healthcare or medicine. We've experienced that it's not necessarily important to have millions of documents to calculate a seed thesaurus out of it. So our experience was about 2 million terms is a maximum until the quality of the seed thesaurus will not improve significantly anymore. And to have 2 million extracted terms, we figured out it's about 30,000 documents we need as a minimum. If you have 100,000, it's fine. Our performance is good enough to handle that, but our tool is not a tool which handles, let's say, tens of millions of documents. That's not what we are doing for term extraction. Of course, you can do that with the documents themselves. So here we have no limit. You can give us 30 millions, 100 millions. That's our extraction service. But for corpus management, for reference corpus management, we don't believe you need so many documents. So just to make sure we talk about the same thing. To annotate documents, sure, you can give us millions. That's okay. But for reference corpus analysis, it's not necessary. That's what I said, just to make sure we understand each other.
Okay.
Okay, thanks. There is also Bill Howard. Hi, Bill. Thanks for your for attending this meeting. And he says it's a good presentation. Thank you for that. Then there is Sachin, and he or she, I'm sorry, is asking, does PoolParty have a capability to import a corpus of PDF documents to semi-automatically create the thesaurus? Yes, exactly. That's what we support. So you have, let's say, a couple of documents, PDF, maybe 5,000 or 10,000. That's a typical number. You upload them. That takes a couple of minutes, maybe half an hour. And then you start to analyze those documents. And then what you will receive is you receive those terms and phrases which are most important in this reference corpus. And usually you have already a kind of a structure in your first iteration of a thesaurus. And then you start to integrate these free terms into your approved concepts. And the reference corpus analysis also will display which concepts of your thesaurus are actually used in these PDFs. So that's how it works. So please get your demo account and try it on your own. That's the first thing, most straightforward. And if you want to have assistance from our side, just let us know. Of course, I also can show it to you in a private session. That's no problem to us.
That's great. So this is Sachin again.
Hi, Sachin.
Hi. One more question on that. Is it also possible to link an external ontology in an OWL format to the thesaurus?
Not really, I have to admit. I mentioned it before. We are not the biggest OWL supporters here at PoolParty team. Of course, you can load the OWL ontology into the Triple Store, and if you have an OWL reasoner installed, you can make use of it. But we are more focused on RDF schema and SCOS related knowledge graphs, I have to say.
Okay.
But I have to inform you that we will support OWL classes pretty soon, which means you can say, okay, a certain resource is not only a SCOS concept, but also a certain OWL class. That will be possible. But our editor is not like Protégé, where you can do all this, let's say, extended OWL modeling things. We did not want to copy Protégé so much. We focus more on other application scenarios, especially when it comes to the question how to handle documents, their annotations, their categorizations, in combination with linked data graphs.
Okay. Okay. And in the thesaurus, you are able to modify relationships just like Protégé in a way, right? If you're using a thesaurus.
Yes, you can do that. You make use of all the relations SCOS provides, or you create your own schemas. So we call that custom schema, and you can create your own relations like, I don't know, is CEO of, is predecessor of, was established by, is founded in, whatever. And those relations you put together in your custom schemas, and you can group them, and you can make use of that later when you execute Sparkle queries, of course.
Perfect, perfect. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. Thank you for your questions. Okay, there is another question from Malte Hanenwald. Mr. Hanenwald is asking, is it possible to auto-create tags from certain SharePoint formula fields? Let me think. Yeah, I believe yes. I have to say we should go into details. what you can do with the power tagging for SharePoint 2013 is that you can create the power tagger for any field of your SharePoint document, which means you can say, okay, this field, let's say you created a certain document type which has several fields, so you name, for instance, version and year, okay, which is more or less a number. We are probably more focused on fields which have some text. But then you can say, okay, which text fields should be analyzed by the power tagger, and from there should the text be extracted, only from the title or also from another field, and so on and so forth. So that's possible. You can configure that with a pretty high granularity.
Okay, sounds good.
Hi.
We just started, so I don't know if this is answered all my questions I will have later on, but yeah.
Okay. Yeah, but I have to say, maybe version or year we not necessarily can support much with power tagging, because that's typically a number or an integer value. So the power tagger usually does the annotation of text fields, and it, if you want to hear it technically spoken, we replace a literal by a URI of your knowledge graph.
Okay.
And of course, if you have a year as an entity in your knowledge graph and it has a URI, it's great. Of course, you can do that. But I don't know. I wouldn't say that's probably the killer application of linked data.
Okay.
Okay. Thank you.
Thanks.
Okay, then I think yes, Daniel already asked it. And then there is a question of Herbert Schenz. He's asking, for the use of power tagging, do the documents that have to be tagged have to be imported to the CMS?
I want to explain it. Given I
Okay.
have some documents